Alright guys, welcome to another video. Today we're actually go over the conversion stone strategy. Alright, so if you don't know what a conversion stone is, they're brand new to the game. There's this thing in the top right. Lilith kind of backdates some of the achievements, essentially how many legendary armaments you open. So I got like 14 and I ended up buying one, so I had 15 and you can see I have one left. So I used 14. So I played around with it a little bit, but let's go over some general strategies for this. Okay, so when I click this question mark on the top here, you can see for no inscription or single, you get 1. For a rare, which is this blue thing here, you get 3. And then the special inscriptions, which are yellow, we all know about them, it costs you 10 to actually convert it over. All right, if you for whatever reason have a double, whatever the normal cost is, you're just going to add 2 on top of it. So right here, this should cost you 3, but because it's a double, if I wanted to switch this over to say V formation, you can see how it's going to cost you 5. Right, so in my opinion, I think where you could get the most value and where you should prioritize is if you have any special inscriptions. There are these yellow ones, and they're in a formation that's essentially kind of not usable for you, or you're not going to use it. And this is, by the way, prioritizing for open fielding. This should be where you switch your special inscription, right? So if you got, let's just say, money line formation, all right, great. You get a 7.5% extra resources when you're gathering, right? You can actually switch that over to say wedge, right, and get it balanced, and it will be for sure, like, unless you have been just spending a massive amount of money or getting very lucky, you probably don't have balance on every one of your wedge formations, right? So it'll be an instant upgrade. These things, if I had to put like a value on them, they're worth at least 10% of stats, probably more. So you can literally switch it over, and then the armament can have no relevant stats on it. Like, it's for cav and you have no cav stats, and it would probably still be an upgrade instantly over what you have. Okay, so this is very good. I think that should be the first priority. It also costs you 10 conversion stones. Lilith kind of screwed us. Originally, when they announced some of the details for this like a week ago, they said they were going to release it on the 8th, the update, which they did. And then any kingdom that enters Lost Kingdom after the 7th, I think I got the date wrong. Any kingdom that enters Lost Kingdom on the 7th, that's when they released it, are going to be able to get conversion stones in the achievement. I think it was supposed to be 10 or 12. I don't know because it's not in here, right? They did release something saying they don't have enough time. They're going to have to push it back to the 10th. But regardless, we just got into Lost Kingdom. We got kind of screwed, so I don't know. But it should cost about, if you get all the achievements, the special to convert it over should cost about all the conversion stones you get from an achievement during KBK. Right about all of them. You also have the option to buy it. It's kind of like the new world bundle of the passport, where it'll reset every month. It ends up costing like 185 US dollars to get like about 10, I think, which is kind of crazy to me. But if you want to go that route, you can, right? But the priority, I think, should be to actually get the specials in the right place if they're in a place where that special is kind of unusable right now. All right. The second priority should be going towards field, right? So a lot of times, let's actually go over to this, people prioritize stats over the inscriptions, right? So you can see right now, I have a double inscription here, but it's actually missing a relevant stat, right? I have an inscription where there's a triple stat, it's almost all max, that looks a lot prettier, right? So I put on here, this will look a lot better, right? But functionally, it would actually be worse than if I go to the double inscription. Not all inscriptions are created the same, right? So there's some really good rares, there's some rares that aren't as good. Same thing with the common or white inscription. I think, in my opinion, the two best white inscriptions you could get are assertive, where you get 2% more damage while on the map, right? Essentially open fielding. And then something like vitality or robust, where you get 3.5% health. And then another one is actually breaker. Let's pull up breaker, where it almost kind of functions like how a dagger works, right? Essentially, every time you do a basic attack, which, by the way, if you're doing combo attack, you get a lot more basic attack chances, right? You could reduce the target's defense by 15% for 3 seconds, right? So I think breaker, anything that adds 3.5% health, and then something like assertive are probably the 3 best common, okay? The next step up is usually like rares. Crazed, in my opinion, is one of the worst rares you can get, right? But then the step above that is like a good double. So it could be a combination of a rare and a good single, or just 2 good, I mean, not single, common inscription, or just 2 good common inscriptions, right? What if you had something with, say, like 3.5% health, and also assertive, like 2% more damage, right? That's going to be better than most of the rares you can get. I think maybe all of the rares you can get, only worse than the special inscription. Okay, so if you have a slot right now where there isn't a good, at least a good common to a double to a rare to a special, right? Start figuring out a way where maybe you have something here that's just sitting on the bench, where if you, for example, switch this over, this is not good, by the way, which I'm not going to do it, but let's just say it was good, and you switch it over to a wedge, right? Maybe it could be useful somewhere else. That would actually be where you get the second most value, right? So if the priority is special, second priority is to start filling out your spots where for open fielding marches where you just don't have a good inscription there. Okay, the inscription should be the priority more than the stats, because once you get the inscriptions there, then you can start getting the stats to a good place. The third priority, in my opinion, is to start kind of setting up, right? So right now, for specials in the future. So right now, the top left, the scroll, the bottom right are the two spots where you can actually get a special inscription and then inscribe over a current slot. Okay, so obviously we all know what Autark is when you win a KVK, or when you get enough kills and you get the Autark shards over 3 KVKs, you'll be able to get a special inscription. For the Arch formation, it's destructive. For the wedge, it's going to be Hunter, right? I think Hunter is the one we're probably a little bit more familiar with. Side note, I think destructive is really good. The community has got there's a section of the community that's kind of gotten on this, like, the train of how because it burns rage, it's not good. It's still very good. I'm not going to talk about that here, but like destructive is still the best in the slot for the scroll, in my opinion. Okay, but if you start getting something like this, right, in the top left or bottom right slot, in the future you can inscribe over it, and not only are you going to have the best in slot inscription, you're also going to have the best or almost the best in slot stats, right? So I actually converted this over, use one conversion stone from wedge, because I think the future for infantry is going to be more smite than skill, and then I plan on putting a invincible, I think it's called invincible on here, all right, the bottom right slot invincible on here when I get enough shards, right? So right now, for example, let's go to my city, I'm at 7 shards, right? So 92 more of these legendaries that I recycle, I'll be able to get one. Right, when I go in here, it won't let me open it up. I'm gonna buy a invincible. Maybe it's like a show. But anyways, I'm gonna buy an invincible. Oh, it's down here. I'm losing my mind. And I'm gonna inscribe that onto that triple stat one. That's very good. And then it's not gonna get much better. I'm never gonna try to reroll it, right? Because the chances are astronomically low. And then that slot will, I mean, Lilith could do something crazy. It'll be forever done. Okay, so that, in my opinion, will probably be the third priority. Is if you have some stuff where you can set up for either the bottom right or the top left slot for a special in the future, do that. And then the fourth priority, and this will also be interchangeable with the third priority, is to start doing some more niche stuff. Okay, so this kind of went under the radar, but this Tercio formation, right? It's designed specifically for city garrisons. And if you're garrisoning your city, this formation is broken, because essentially attack, defense, and health, no matter if it's infantry, cav, siege, or whatever it is, they're actually going to be applicable to all troop types. All right, so think like leadership gear. Right now you have leadership, quote unquote, armaments, right? This only applies to city garrisons. So, you know, so you don't get something that's way too broken for actual like fighting. But if you're going to plan on random TPing, right, and then your garrison isn't that good, which mine up to this point hasn't been, I've always been a little scared of random TP. Now I feel a lot more confident, right? Because if I have this on here, this is essentially tripling, maybe even like 3.5 times more powerful, because you have some siege in there, right? How strong your city garrison is going to be based on with the stats you get. And then if you actually start looking at the codex, okay, Tercio formation, rare, and specials are disgusting. If you get the rare, you just straight up take 3% less damage. This is multiplicative, right? So whatever damage you're supposed to take, multiply that by 0.97, because you're just going to take 3% less damage. The special inscription version, you take 7% less damage. Like even like the scroll slot, right? You get a 15% boost. So not an increase, a boost. It's again multiplicative to your counterattack damage, right? Like if you just have a special in each slot, I could literally have a naked garrison commander and probably feel pretty good random TPing around. Like no, like even like the top players will get devastated trying to swarm you. Okay, so this thing has made it very hard for you to actually get swarmed when it comes to a city rally, and also like even when you're when you're getting swarmed when you're off territory, and even when you're taking a city rally, you'll be able to hold up much better. Okay, this coupled with say like Hera, and then whatever you want to put as a secondary that's like viable, will essentially make you pretty safe when you're off territory. All right, so this is a niche you could go for, right? That's actually where I spent like 4 conversion stones, and it didn't take much, right? Some of these specifically I forgot to cover. Uplifting is not good for the open field, but it's very good for garrison and rally, right? Because you're going to stay connected for up to 50 seconds. When you're doing that, this turns into a 5% normal damage increase, right? Which also applies to counterattack and everything else. Sentries is also very good for garrisoning, because when you're garrisoning, you just take 2% less damage, right? So even though this is a common or white, but the actual power level for this is much higher, right? This like is better than most rares in my opinion, relative to like what it's doing. And you could literally just switch over from one, let's just say you get this for wedge, right? And you don't have a wedge commander, right? You have Gorgo or something. Switch it over to Tercio, right? Or even Arch, because now it becomes usable, right? So like a lot of these inscriptions are specific to a certain type of role. Put them in the right slot where they can actually be used, and it's actually very, very cheap. It'll only cost you 1 conversion stone. Another one is actually a lot of the V formation ones, right? So if you look at the V formation, we look at line shot, right? When you're not in V formation, right? So some of us have this for like wedge or arch. It's useless. You get 1% more normal damage. I guess it's not useless, but it's not that good. But when it becomes a V formation and you're in V formation, you get 5% more normal damage increase. For Gajamada and Cordoba, smite damage commanders, that means a white damage is doing 5% more damage, but also the smite damage is doing 5% more damage. It essentially functions kind of like a all 5% all damage, which is broken good, right? Another one, which I do plan on switching over eventually, is actually this one on my banner slot for infantry, right? I have ballistic here. You can see again, while in V formation, you deal 3% more all damage. Really, really good. I said assertive, which does 2% damage, is really good. This one, you actually get extra percent. But if you're going to be doing it for wedge, you're just getting 1.5% more counterattack damage. Not that good, right? So this one is a mid armament at best for infantry. I switch it over to V formation. It actually becomes a top tier V formation inscription. Probably the only thing you're going to find usually that's better than this would be a special inscription on that slot, right? So again, let's kind of recap the order of priority in my opinion. Special inscription for the open field first. This is the open fielding guide. Second is actually starting to make sure that you have a inscription in every slot. So you're not just looking at the stats, you actually have an inscription. Like guard is not that good. This is one eventually I would like to replace. Third priority is to start setting up for the top left and the bottom right slots. So if you have a good triple stat, right, or something that could be potentially really good. So like this one, right, I could keep it as Cav. It's in the banner slot. I can move it over to say like Arch, maybe even Delta in the future. And I just need to roll a Cav stat and then put an inscription over it, like a special, and it'll be a top tier special inscription, right? So you want to keep stuff in the top left, bottom right. Honestly, even the other 2 slots, I think in the future, you'll probably get an ability to reroll. So that's why, like, even though right now there's no ability to inscribe over this or anything good, right? 1.9% all damage is about as high as you could get. 2 is the highest you could get. I want to keep this because if I could actually put a good inscription on in the future, this is one very universal. I could switch it over to a lot of things, right? So you start keeping stuff like this projecting into the future. And then fourth, you start doing some niche stuff. I went over the Tercio city garrison formation. I actually used like 4 of my conversion stones to build a arch cav set. Just so in altars, I want to run Arthur primary, Luce secondary to mess around with the combo damage and see how it does in like a Dark Arthur or something. There's this one, right? You can see this slot here. This smite was originally on wedge, right? It would give me 2% more normal damage. Not that great for wedge, right? But for arch, right, combo damage and smite damage benefit from normal damage. So this becomes essentially kind of like assertive or like a 2% all damage. and then the actual stats, right? 1.4% all damage. It actually becomes very, very solid. So for just one conversion stone, I switched this over from wedge. It was worth it to me, and now I have at least a okay arch set to run around, to mess around when I want to do Arthur with combo damage. I mean, you could even do Philip behind him, right? But I'm gonna mess around with Luchette when I get a chance. All right. So thank you guys for watching. If you have any comments or questions, you can put it down in the comment section below. And then if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to the video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you guys next time.